So, Asif, what's the number one attribute that all great leaders have to have, especially in business?
Thank you very much, Umar. In business, particularly, a leader must have the ability to inspire others. So, when you are talking about inspiring others, so you can have other attributes. You can have a great vision, a great idea. You can have the ability to set clear goals, hold yourself and others accountable. But if you can't inspire people to give their best to you, to give their best to the cause, the objective, the goal that you're representing, then you're not a leader. You can be a great manager, you can be a great technocrat, but in order to be a leader, first attribute that comes to mind is the ability to rally people, to become a persona that others, which who embodies others' aspirations and people want to follow. That's
Nice.
leadership.
The No Limit Selling Podcast, where mindset meets sales and leadership. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the No Limit Selling Podcast. And today I'm actually really excited because not only is this guy an amazing leader, but also a friend. Asif Zaidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Omar. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So what really intrigued me when I first met you is that you started your journey in Pakistan, and then you ended up going to the Middle East, and then ended up coming to Canada. So when you graduated from university, what was the first job that you got? Where did you land?
Yeah, when I graduated from university, I was actually, I did a master's in geotechnical engineering, but I wound up in a bank. So that was by accident, and because I knew some people who were working for a bank, and I used to play cricket with them, and they asked me to apply, and the kind of salaries that the banks gave were better than engineers. So you kind of bargain
Hallelujah.
your idealism for financial security, which wasn't unknown in our generation, my generation. You are younger. So that's how I wound up in a bank.
So that's kind of interesting. I like that little segue that you played cricket with them, because one of the things that's really interesting is that how someone plays on the field gives you a glimpse on what their psychology is. So they must have liked the way you connected with the team and how you behaved. So is there a parallel between how one behaves in sport and how one behaves in business?
There is a huge parallel. So one, how one behaves in sports and what one really is. Sports bears you, especially competitive grinding sports, bears you to the last dredges of your real self. So in sports, when we play with people, even on the other team, we know them for what they are. Once you have played them for a while, played with them for a while, or played along with someone. So sports reveals your real persona, your real personality, and the way you compete. Because there are many moments in sports where you have to let your guards down, intentionally or unintentionally. The parallel with business is that there are a number of things that sports teaches you. It teaches you to compete fairly. It teaches you resilience and perseverance, and it teaches you delayed gratification. Nobody becomes a star overnight. Hard work always precedes fortune or popularity in sports. So there are a lot of we had in city, and we had in other organizations. There were not a lot of business leaders who were great sports people or who played serious sports at college level. Yeah.
Interesting. What's kind of often it's not the team with the superstars, it's the teams that actually have people that are average players, but the way they come together, they create something special and winning. So, talk to me about we don't always need superstars, but we absolutely 100% need a team that trusts each other and will go to the ends of the earth for each other.
Yes, I totally agree with that. In team sports, so there are things that team sports especially inculcate in you. There are things which individual sports inculcate in you, but people who do well as team people and team sports usually do well. They usually have very good emotional intelligence and do well in other aspects of life. So the things, the one first thing is to become a part of a group and you subsume your identity and your ambition to the ambition and identity of your team. So that is
Mm,
the first thing. Yeah, the second thing is that your collective result becomes more important. So any good sports person, look at Messi. He was man of the match so many times, greatest footballer.
yes.
But what winning the World Cup meant to him, because that is something that he was after, not as a trophy, but as an expression of his leadership of men who can be led to glory by him. So that is something that sports teaches you, that you identify with a collective goal. And second thing which you mentioned, that superstars is not really, they don't make the team. The team is about coordination, about everybody knowing their role, everybody and having a leader who clearly communicates everybody's roles to that, and then frees them up to deploy their full talent and resources, and then inspire them to give their best. So that is what happens in business also. Most businesses, unless you are a trader and trading away from your drawing room or basement, that is something else. But if you lead in a team, it's a team sport. If you have people working for you, it's a team sport. You can't do it alone. And
Yes.
yeah, and those are the qualities which are very common between sports leadership and business leadership.
Absolutely. I think what's kind of interesting is in order for an organization to really thrive, you need people to trust in the vision, which is another way of saying trusting in the leader. They need to trust in the process and they need to trust in the team members that when I give Asif a task to do, I don't have to double check. I know it's going to be done. And when you get an organization like that, this is how you outthink and you outpace people. But to build an organization like that, is really hard to do. So, have you seen an organization? You know, you were a banker, especially in uh, in the Middle East, when you were actually managing such a large area, where there were organizations that maybe did not have that magic, but somehow these companies figured it out and went from being a team that was doing okay to a team that was exceptional.
Yes, I have seen organizations being transformed by the change at the helm of the organization.
Mm,
Because I have sometimes seen that a bank or an organization was well led, and then you had a bad leader who came along, and into rifts and politics started. On the converse, I have seen. So there are two kinds of attributes to an organization. One is the institutional strength. So institutional strength is your customer centricity. If you're talking about a
mm,
grown, mature organization, that's part of the culture. Uh, Business savviness across the echelons of the organization and risk management. But the other aspect is that leader brings to the organization, which is the vision, which is setting up the priorities, and which is the ability to get the team work better together.
yes.
And I have seen that when you have a change of leadership, all of a sudden the leadership is transformed. So you look at, for example, in banking industry, you look at Jamie Dimon. He moved to, he left City and he moved on. Whichever organization he went to, he was able to show his mettle as a leader, and he was able to transform it. And now, so you look at Igor when he transformed Disney, and then these leaders keep coming back in different guises, because sometimes we fail to find successes for them. So he's back again in a different economy, and towards the end of his career, but at the peak of his career, he was a tremendous leader. Who did a lot of good to Disney and who created a team that was formidable. So I can go on, but there are many such
There's
examples.
many examples, but we're going to go to a sponsor. We'll be right back, and then we're going to go deeper into
Okay.
this topic. The instant review kiosk captures video testimonials, then automatically converts them into Google written reviews. This is huge for three reasons. Number one, you get more reviews. Number two, video reviews are just as powerful as a personal recommendation. And most important, we make it super easy for your customers to leave you a review at the height of the experience. Increase your sales by getting a kiosk today. So thank you to the instant review kiosk. So what's kind of interesting is, at least my feelings are, my hypothesis is that the natural state of human beings coming together in an organization is one of selfishness, and office politics tend to be the norm rather than the exception. And A, would you agree with that? And B, when a new leader comes in that has the gifts, one of the things they end up doing is getting people to stop focusing on the drama and start focusing on the mission. So A, do you agree that that's our normal state? And B, how do you think great leaders transform organizations that are average in office politics and it's all about me, and they get to an organization where it's all about the vision and how do I support it?
Yeah. So the first question is very interesting. We take a step back from business and look at the human evolution. If you look at
Mm,
human evolution, our natural state is a blend of selfishness and selflessness. Because if we were purely selfish, exclusively selfish, we would not have evolved past Neanderthals and Homo
mm.
erectus and other species. So it was our ability to act in collective good that brought us here where we are today, past all other species and supreme to all other living life. That is one thing.
So hold on just
But
there,
there is
Asif,
a
if I can interrupt you there just for a second. Uh, so back in the day when we were like just basically out of the caves, being in the tribe was the only way to survive. So if you weren't in the tribe, you died. So there was like this real powerful force that forced us to cooperate for our very survival. Do you think that's true? And because that also allowed us to build civilizations and all of that. So do you think it was uh, our selfish interest to come together in tribes, or am I just reading it wrong?
No, you are right. That's fine. I was coming to that.
Huh.
So your evolutionary compulsion made you act selfishly in some respects and selflessly in some respects. Now, if you're insinuating that because we don't need tribes to survive, so that we may have lost that instinct. No, we haven't lived long enough to lose that evolutionary instinct.
Absolutely.
It's very much a part of us. And there are moments where people, so what happens is the context and the culture. You will see that some of the people who will do, very nefarious politics in office, you can find them acting very selflessly in
Mm,
some other milieu, some other surrounding.
yes.
So, and I will come back to the hold that point in mind for me. But the second point I am trying to make is that these two impulses have always acted in a collective human interest. Individually, people may suffer by being selfless. What happens is that, for example, an army left to conquer far off lands,
Yes.
and there are certain people within that army. So, one, the army which is more selfless wins. So the team which is more selfless wins. But it doesn't mean that everybody in that selfless group is selfless. Then what happens is paradoxically that selfish people in that selfless group prosper more. The
Yes.
soldier who fought valiantly died and got a medal, but the soldier who shirked from danger and was in the back survived to have a progeny to profit from whatever they conquered. So that's the irony. But
Yes.
coming back to the point, so that is one thing. And that's the part of the leader to minimize that within a group. You cannot eradicate it, you cannot finish it. These two impulses will remain. But that's the part of the leader, whether you are an army or whether you are a business, that look, collect what if you, so there are two options. You play for personal glory or you play for team. Leader's job is to make understand that the gains that will be conferred upon you by virtue of your group's success are much greater than if you do well personally and the group doesn't do that well. So they understand that the group has to thrive. Now, when the group does thrive, that is human, that some people will selfishly profit a little more, but individually, the leader gets people to set aside their selfishness first for the common objective. So that's why I said goal setting is very important. If you are playing a World Cup or a tournament, you some players go into a tournament not talking to each other, but during the tournament they are extremely well coordinated in business also, because that is the picture, clear image of a collective good, a collective glory that inspires people to subsume their identities and personal aspirations, and that is the job of a leader.
I think so. And I think one of the things that you probably said, but I'm going to add to it and kind of broaden it just a little bit, is it's not just goals, it's the magic, the story that the leader brings to the table on why those goals are so imperative. Because oftentimes what happens is the reason people get more selfish and more office politics or little silos within organizations is because the stories that they're creating are more important than the vision of the company. And if you get a great leader who says, let's go change the world, who wants to come with me? And these are the goals. People have a vision greater than themselves and they want to go on that journey. And to get those kinds of leaders is rare. So if you were going to lay out a curriculum, Asif, on what kind of skill sets a leader should have to be able to do that, uh, if we were designing the perfect leader, what kind of attributes would we get them to have, and what kind of skills should they possess?
Yeah, so I basically agree with you that look, the one of the basic human impulses that evolution has not taken away from us yet is to be part of something bigger than ourselves. That's
Yes.
why we created so many myths, nationalism, religion, this, that, because we wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And today's corporation is business corporation is a big locomotive for that purpose. A leader's job is to get people to identify to a gain which is bigger. So when I was at Citi or other people at different organizations, the identity of that organization becomes their identity because
Yes.
yeah, so it becomes a hallowed territory because they thought that it was supreme to their identity. Like for some people, religion is, for some people, they're wrongly so, but their skin color maybe for some people. So a leader, how do they create that collective ethos within a group is number one, they have to be able to inspire the people.
Yep.
Secondly, they have to be able to foster a supportive environment within the group. So whatever groupings you have had over, over the course of human history, you have seen that there are groups which are more interconnected, support each other more, they thrive better. In some countries, you will see that minorities thrive far beyond the majority in Middle
Mm.
Eastern countries, African. So what happens is they foster an environment over a period of time which is very supportive, and they know their survival depends on upon each other. So if I know that my glory resides in the glory of Umar and Umar's glory resides in the glory of somebody else, then that becomes a chain of connected and interconnected aspirations, hopes, desires, which a leader is able to knit together. So that is very important. Then the uh, the ability to know who does what better or best,
Yeah.
and then freeing up that person. So you can be a great leader, inspired, but you have seen in politics, but using wrong people for wrong jobs. So that could be your undoing. So there are four or five things that have to go together for me. One is inspiration. Second is creating a supportive environment, which is when I say supporting environment, we spoke about it, where people believe in common glory and know have the best possibility to work together. Then communication skills. If you cannot articulate what you want, if you cannot have, through the level of the common person. So if you look at great leaders who were great communicators, not necessarily the brightest. They did the best in business and politics because they could relate to every person within their audience or within their cohorts or jurisdiction. The third thing is decisiveness.
Mm.
Nobody wants an indecisive. You decide as a leader. You can decide wrongly sometime. Sometimes your decisions will bring you glory, but you cannot be indecisive. Nobody follows an indecisive person. And the fourth thing is confidence. Your confidence rubs on everyone in your organization. As a leader, you may have a short height, but you have to have a tall shadow that falls on
Oh, I
everyone
love
in
that.
the organization. If you don't have that tall shadow, then you are not really suffusing people with the sense of purpose that you have. So for that, communication and decisiveness are very important. So for me, these are four or five. Otherwise, we have attributes which are adaptability and all those things can be learned on the fly. But there are
But they're
certain
the core foundation.
core found. These are the core foundations. Some people are born blessed with that, and they know. Then you know how to use that best. But yes, so you have met people who were inspiring when they spoke. Everybody listens, and you feel like spring into action listening to them. So
Yes.
that is important.
So I think one of the things that leaders do is you mentioned that confidence and that ability to connect with trust, because oftentimes leaders ask their charges to do heroic things, and the person that you're asking to do that doesn't have the confidence in themselves at the level they need, and they borrow the confidence that the leader has in them to go on the journey and discover that they were capable of so much more. And so that leadership is like so critically important in empowering our people to go beyond their limitations
Yes,
and discover what they're capable of.
yes, yes. So it is a leadership. Normally, a great leader is a very good judge of people. So we judge people by what they are capable, what they have already done, and they judge themselves what they are capable of doing. There's a
Mm,
disconnect between the two, and the reality lies somewhere in between. Reader is someone who puts his finger on that reality, at what this person is capable of doing, and then gives the person confidence. It's not just that. Sometimes you have to bridle someone's confidence to be able to get best out of them. So
yes.
yes, so that is the art of leadership. That you have to see that where the person's level of confidence and skills are, what is the equation between two, and which one I need to feed.
Yeah, you need to know your people. I
Yes,
often recommend that leaders become like the KGB and have a file on every single person in the leadership team in a good way in terms of, oh, Janet, Janet is motivated this way.
Hmm.
This is the key value that she has, so that A, it's good for you, and B, when a new leader comes to take over your position as you move on to the next and greatest, you can actually coach them on, this is Janet. She's amazing. Here's the strengths. Here's how you motivate her. Here's how you do Jack. So right now, Asif, you are the CEO and founder of uh, MPR Moving and Landscaping. Which one came first? And tell us about the company and which one came second.
Yeah, so I am the founder of Meadowville Party Rental that came first. Then came MPR Movers, then MPR Landscapes. And between, I've served on several boards and done a real estate project, but these three came in that order.
And so, how many employees in each organization
There are about 60 employees altogether.
together?
Yeah, because
So
some of them are interchangeable because some of this business is seasonal. So,
nice. That flexibility is
yes,
huge.
yeah.
So, because of that, and because you're leading it, I would suspect that the culture between the three organizations is probably the same or very similar. Would that be a true statement?
Yes, it is. It is very similar. It's the same culture. The things that you lead, you carve them in your image unintentionally. That happens. So your business
Nice.
is like your child. Whether child accepts it, you accept it or not, they are going to reflect you to a
They-
certain degree.
They're going to want pocket money. Darn it. Uh,
Yes, that too.
so,
Mm.
I want to get to this organization that we both belong to. It's open. It's the Organization for Pakistani Entrepreneurs, and you're the president. And the reason I bring that up is A, it's an amazing organization. Dear listeners and viewers, if you get a chance, go find your local chapter, go join it. But in this organization, Asif, you are the president of the organization, and at the same time, you have no power. So that's true leadership of how you get people that are volunteers to step up and do their best work. So, are there any pieces of advice you would give when you're leading an organization where you don't have the hire, fire, give a raise kind of incentives, but you still have to inspire them? Uh, is it a different set of skills than a regular corporation where you're the CEO, or is it the same?
No, it's partly same, partly very different. Because what happens is in an organization like that, and I've led the American Chamber of Commerce in a few countries and similar other organizations. It requires a very different approach in the sense that uh, in these organizations you have empathy without reward and recognition and financial benefits and those kind of things. So one thing that is important is to create a collective psyche for the organization, ethos for the organization. In these organizations, people will only be inspired by the collective good. So what happens is you have to create an organization where people know that most people, hey, I get into a room and I see 29 people sitting there who are not there for personal gain. They are
Mm,
there to give and take and mostly to be able to do what. So everybody asks themselves, what do you bring to the table? That is one thing. At the same time, in the real hard world, you have people around you, cohorts. So you have to know what motivates each person, what brings them there. There are certain people who come only to give. There are certain people who come only to take.
mm,
And at some point in time, your organization or you have to make them understand that this is not the place for that approach. Here is a give and take. But you have to balance all kind of people because, and you have to create a culture which is kind of more cooperative than competitive. There's
right.
no competition. Whereas in a business organization or in a team, a sports team, if people are competing against themselves. They are competing against their colleagues before competing against others. But this is a different media. It's a different
Yes.
environment. So here, you have to be able to much more than business. You have to be able to understand everyone's emotions, motives there, emotions. So there could be some people who are not the right fit, so you have to have people who are the right fit. So like in business, like in any industry, in NGOs also, there are right fits, and sometimes you get misfits also.
Excellent. So at this stage of your life, your career, Asif, I'm noticing of late that you are creating videos and creating essays that it's almost like you're looking at business at life from a different lens. There, I heard this quote. I'm not sure who said it, but whoever said it, it was totally genius. It was the three stages of man. Uh, One, you believe in Santa Claus. The second phase is you don't believe in Santa Claus, and the third one is you are Santa Claus. And the sense I get is you've gone to that third phase where you're trying to get people to pull the lens back and see life in a bigger way. A, have I read it right? And B, uh, why at this moment in time are you doing that?
Yeah, so a simple answer is that you have time to fulfill your pursuits. But I differ from them, from that, in the sense that I've always had time to do whatever I want.
Mm,
And always, when I was at the bank, in the bank, I used to write or do whatever I wanted, because you have to create time for yourself. So that is one thing. But you have to look at the personality. So there are two type of people who generally, one who devote themselves single-mindedly to one single pursuit to the exclusion of all other possibilities in life. I come from a different philosophy where I embrace a rich and diverse life with a broad spectrum of interest, without concentrating, without over concentrating in one area. So I have tried to fulfill, enrich my life in different respects, as a professional, as an employee, as a banker, as an entrepreneur, as a sports person, as a traveler, as in terms of subject,
a
philosophy,
Renaissance man.
business, history, literature, psychology. In terms of human relationships, I have tried to live all relationships to the fullest. And so I've taken my, my full chance of living the time that I was accorded here, and that was my only chance. And as a writer, so basically, it was a personal choice also. Like in my career also, and I told my children also, well, whatever they do, never do anything that you don't enjoy. It's not worth
Right.
it. I'm not being pedantic. I'm not talking about people who have less of a choice and they have to grind or whatever. So don't take me wrong, but as much as possible, don't do things that you don't like, don't enjoy. So I've always done things which I enjoy. In terms of when I was a banker, I thrived in innovative financial solutions, product making, or navigating market volatility, developing businesses. Sports, you enjoy competitive achievements, team dynamics, leadership. As a writer, you enjoy what you have gleaned from your reading, observation, traveling all through your life. You enjoy publishing that, sharing with other people, and you enjoy exploring different topics. And then, as an entrepreneur, I enjoy the startup challenges. Oh my God,
Nice.
I was a city banker, too full of myself, former MD. I thought I knew everything about business. I knew nothing about business, Umar. So uh, that's why I have so much respect for entrepreneurs. Like to borrow Nassim Nicola Talib's phrase, they have this their skin in the game. So when I came here, I started a business. I was started like I was teaching at a university, but that reality is very different. So it took me 3 years to do the hard yards and to be able to call myself an entrepreneur. So there was no easy sailing. So, and that has been the fulfillment. That
Yeah.
has been fulfillment.
Success is amazing and wonderful, and we should rejoice and celebrate. But those challenges and failures that we overcome this is where our character is built.
Oh yes. And when you look back at your life, when you look back at your stay for 2 months in Paris or London, you recount it or weigh it in terms of the experience you had. So when you have lived 60 years, you look back at your life for 40 years or 30 years, it is your experience that define that the course of that journey, the worth of that journey.
Absolutely. Asif, thank you so much for spending time
You're
with me
very
today.
welcome.
It's always a pleasure. Let me end the show and then we'll chat in a few minutes.
Okay,
Everyone,
thank you, Umar. It was great.
everyone, if
Thank
you
you for
like
hosting me.
this, oh, my pleasure.
Thank you.
And we're going to put the links to connect with Asif in the show notes so you can find him and his writings and videos. And if you like this episode of the podcast, please subscribe and also give us a great rating on Spotify and Apple. And see you on the next episode. The No Limit Selling Podcast, where mindset meets sales and leadership.